All right, welcome to the live stream. I'll give it a couple minutes for people to get connected and all of that stuff. I'll minimize this other monitor for a bit just so it doesn't reflect in the background. We are going to be live fact checking to the extent that it can be done live. It'll sort of depend on the number of lies that are told per minute or per second, as maybe is better said with Donald Trump. The presidential address that will be taking place at 9 p.m. Eastern at the top of the hour. Welcome to people joining us in Europe, where it is late in the UK and even later in, mainland Europe and much, much later in Eastern Europe. Welcome to everybody who is joining us in the United States as well. We are, thank you. Oh, that's actually going to be annoying. I don't think we're going to be able to deal with that. I seem to have an alert set up every time someone subscribes on YouTube. And because of yep, there it is again, because of the massive number of subscribers that we constantly get on YouTube, that's going to get extraordinarily annoying. So let me see how I can turn that off. We do not want subscriber alerts. Okay, let me turn that off and see. I guess I have to save settings. Let's that I apologize for that. That's going to be extraordinarily annoying if it keeps going. So let me turn it off in one spot. And subscribers is already off in another spot. So why is that continuing to come up? Subscribers. Oh, it re-added itself. How is that possible? I refresh and subscriber alerts are back on. I may have to turn that off. Man, I wish I had planned this already properly. We've never had this issue before, and it keeps turning itself on. Yeah, so I might have to delete that entire thing, or it's going to keep going off this entire time. Fortunately, because we have so many people who are subscribing all the time. So that, I think, is... Man, and I can't just mute that. Oh boy, this is a problem. Maybe if I delete... Let's see, I think I've taken care of it. Took care of it in one shot. Eventually, we will be going over to the Trump thing over here. And we also need to get rid of it here. Let's see if we can do that. Getting rid of that there and getting rid of that. Okay, and then if we take this full screen, okay, I don't think it's going to be a problem there. So we've got this shot ready to go for when this whole thing gets going. And then we can come back to me. Okay, I'll have to figure out those alerts at some other time, but I apologize for that. Okay, so we will be taking super chats. We will be doing all sorts of different stuff. Let me first sort of frame what we've got going on today. Number one, normally these types of presidential addresses are reserved for non-overtly political presidential announcements. So an example I gave on the program earlier today is when George W. Bush announced that the U.S. was at war with Iraq. Of course, the motivations for that war were extraordinarily political, but letting the nation know that we were at war would be a legitimate reason to do a presidential address. When President Obama announced that Osama bin Laden had been killed, of course, there were all sorts of political repercussions, but announcing that that had taken place was not in and of itself an overtly political act. Donald Trump tonight will be using the presidential address for an overtly political speech. And my initial sort of concern was that by doing this tonight, I was participating in the problem that is unchecked repetition of Trump propaganda. But I talked to a bunch of people after today's show who emailed me and said, no, if you're going to fact check it, you should do it, because if you don't do this, CNN's going to run it anyway. Fox News will run it anyway. You're not improving the situation by doing nothing. And if you do live fact check, and sometimes on YouTube, being first is important in terms of getting a video up, we will, as soon as we're done, have an archived, uploaded video of the speech with the fact checking. If people see that when they search instead of the CNN stream or the Fox News stream or whatever, we're better off. So that's why I decided to do this. Now, there's sort of three layers of analysis aside from the content of tonight's address that are important to think about. And we'll be thinking about these as this 8-minute address is going on. Number one, what is the reality of whether what is taking place at the border actually warrants this type of presidential address. I've already addressed that, and I think the answer is no. We have record low number of crossings across the border, undocumented, which has been on a decline since before Trump was president. We have a net outflow of undocumented immigrants to Mexico rather than a net inflow from Mexico. Undocumented immigrants commit crime at a lower rate than American-born citizens. They are almost single-handedly responsible for keeping a number of industries up and running in the United States. So there's simply no crisis. So that would be one reason not to even do this at all. Next, even if you can prove that there is a crisis, which I don't believe there is, and I don't think there's any data that would back that up, you then need to justify the border wall as the solution. And you need to justify it as a solution with a price tag that makes sense. It's crazy that I'm even thinking of this based on my politics and the politics of many in our audience. But there's this viral clip on YouTube you can find of economist Milton Friedman, whose politics and economic theories I don't generally agree with, kind of having a back and forth with a young audience member about a car, a hypothetical car, or maybe it was a real car, that had a defect which led to some people being injured or even killed. And Milton Friedman points out it's bad for cars to kill people, but at a certain point, if you go far enough, you start getting to a point that's crazy, which is, let's imagine that it costs the car manufacturer $1 million to fix each car, and there was a 0.01% chance of that car killing someone. Would it still make sense for the government to mandate a recall, for example? And of course, these are hypotheticals, they're thought experiments, but at a certain point we would say, no, that wouldn't make sense. With the wall, you have 1/3 of undocumented immigrants coming over via the U.S.-Mexico border, 2/3 flying in and overstaying visas or coming in via other ways. If you say, well, it would be great to stop that 33%, fair. At a certain point, though, you would say, at what cost would that make sense? Would it make sense if the wall costs $10,000 per deterred illegal crossing, or $100,000, or $1 million, or what? So even if you can prove that we have an immigration crisis, which we don't, even if you can prove that the wall is the solution, which I don't believe you can, given the relatively small portion of undocumented immigrants that are crossing that border, and the relatively high cost and lack of certainty that it will actually prevent those crossings, at a certain point you have to say, well, what is the cost we are incurring in order to put in place this mediocre sort of non-solution? And at that point, I think that there is absolutely no defense of this border wall policy, period, full stop. That's my position. And so that's sort of the framework through which I will be listening to this speech. Does Donald Trump have any compelling data that contradicts the overwhelming consensus that this is not an acute crisis we're dealing with right now? And does he present any new case for why the wall is the solution and why the cost of that wall is one that should be borne by the American people? Because remember, we were told Mexico was going to pay for it. Mexico was never going to pay for it. I don't know anyone who is thinking rationally that believed that. A lot of people not thinking who believe that. What happened to that? So now you have to make the case that it's the American people that should pay for it. So that's the framework. Let's catch up on just a few things so everybody knows what's going on, as we have about 9 minutes or so until this thing gets going. If this is your first live stream, it's great that because we own literally and figuratively the means of production at the David Pakman Show, we have access to the studio 24/7. We can do a daily broadcast show for 200 radio and TV stations, and then we can also do live coverage. So if this is your first stream, this is actually live. You can ask questions and send comments using Super Chat, which is the $ at the bottom of the chat window. New members, and there's a few that have come in, and I will address them momentarily. New members and patrons who sign up during the stream will get shout outs from me. Please don't troll the live chat. You can also use that join button to become a YouTube sponsor, which is very, very cool. And I will mention, we have 2 coupon codes available right now for membership at davidpakman.com/membership. If you like what we're doing, if you think it's important and useful to have alternatives to corporate media just airing the Trump speech, the propaganda speech, if you think it's valuable to have independent progressive analysis, I would encourage you to become a member. And if we get 10 new members between now and the end of Trump's propaganda address, I'll open the phone lines afterwards and we can hear what people think about it and we'll take questions. If you want the phone lines opened, just 10 members. There's 2 coupon codes available. If you want to get a $60 membership for 20 bucks, use the coupon code 2019. Okay. It only works to drop the $60 membership to $20.19. If you just want to save 40% off of any membership on our website, use the coupon code This Is 2020. This Is 2020 works on any membership. So if you want a monthly membership for $3 a month, you can use This Is 2020 as the coupon code. And we're not talking about a big number. If we just get 10 new subscribers during the stream, and as it turns out, we already have 2, Callie Lindholm and Robin Orban Griggs, who have just signed up. So if we get 8 more new members during the speech analysis and fact checking, I'll open the phone calls after. And the more new members, the longer I will keep the phone calls open. So I hope that we get audio properly coming through the various streams that I have. I have an NBC stream ready to go, and I also have the White House stream ready to go. And sometimes, I don't know why or how it happens, when we switch to these sometimes during the stream, we don't get audio. So that's why I have a backup. Otherwise, if all else fails, I will just have to listen in a second earpiece to what Trump is saying and just relay it to you, which will make it really difficult to fact check and be relaying to you what's going on. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Okay, as we wait, let me deal with some of the super chats that we've gotten so far, and I will leave this up on my main monitor. Andrew Lincourt sent a $2 super chat saying, "Thanks for doing this, David. My pleasure. This is why there's going to be much more of this stuff in 2019. Now that we have the new studio set up, now that we have a lot of other things in place, if there's demand for this, if people continue to support the streams, I will do them and we will cover all sorts of events." No one sent a $1 super chat, no question or comment. Thank you very much. King Cosma has become a YouTube member, and Greg Lucas has become a YouTube member. Thanks to all of you. Really appreciate that. Here's the question I have for you. When this thing gets going, should I sort of, in a stream of consciousness way, try to fact check what Trump says? Or, because it's only an 8-minute address, we are told, although between the sniffing and the reading problems, it could become 15. Should I just take notes? I have my laptop here ready to take notes, and then afterwards sort of summarize. Maybe it doesn't make sense to interrupt the speech every what might be 15 seconds if there are that many lies. A couple of people saying stream of consciousness. Wait until he's done. Do it in the moment. Do it after, do it live, summarize later, take the notes, do it later, do it after. Most people seem to be saying notes. So I think what I'll do is I will take notes during this thing. And then afterwards, if something really absurd happens, I'll point it out in real time. But otherwise, we'll mostly talk about it after. One Dead Chicken sent a $5 super chat. "You're in for a busy night. Hope Pat can keep up." No one sends a $2 super chat. "Hi, love your content. Thank you." Brian Chambers with a $10 super chat. Thank you. Alonzo Cal Poly Pomona with a $1.01 super chat. AC0510, $10 super chat. I appreciate you and your channel. Harvey, will you get demonetized for streaming NBC News? Maybe, but if I don't care if this video gets demonetized, because we've got super chats coming in. Hopefully we'll get memberships coming in, which will cause me to open up the phone lines after the event. So that's not a big deal. Awesome Gaming, $5 super chat. "Thanks for doing this. Do you think he will declare a national emergency?" If you had asked me 4 hours ago, I would have said Trump is declaring a national emergency tonight. Now I'm not so sure. And I think that just devastating Russia-related news that has broken in the last several hours showing actual coordination between Paul Manafort and Russia during the campaign, related to the campaign now, I just don't know that Trump's going to do that. This might be a pretext to declare a national emergency at some future point. Clayton H., new YouTube member, thank you. Isaac Mendez, thanks for doing this. Thank you for being here, Isaac. Goat versus fish, the goat fish. Beware the fence sitter. All right. RU52, new YouTube member, thank you very much. And I also want to thank, oh boy, we might almost already be at the point where I will take phone calls after the speech. I said if we get 10 new members, I will do it. Matthew Upchurch has signed up. Paul Schultz or Schultzy has signed up. Celso Gomez has become a member on our website. Jeff Feely and Ryan Fuller all have signed up at davidpakman.com/membership. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I really do appreciate it. And if we get just a few more members, I will open up the phone lines after the Trump speech. I mean, I'm struggling for what to even call it, and my fact checking of it. So thanks very, very much. We are told it will only go 8 minutes, which is great. I don't know that we can tolerate too much more of that. And I am hoping to have audio. I have the NBC stream pulled up, and I also have the White House stream. Let's see what they've got going here. 40,000 people watching the White House stream. 35,000 people watching the NBC stream. I'd rather just take the White House stream. I tend to do that. I just have the NBC one here as a backup. It seems not to be live. Let me go back to live. Okay, there we go. Is this one live? Yeah, it is. All right, live stream starting soon. We will get to that. A couple more super chats. Art Flores with a $9.99 super chat. To quote Jay-Z, driving Benzes with no benefits. Not bad, huh? For some immigrants, build your fences. We dig in tunnels, can't you see? We getting money up under you. LOL. P.S. David, how's your day? Good day. Good day. Busy day. Kev Zeman, longtime fan. I know this is a more serious kind of channel, but y'all should run a sniff count. I wish we had the resources for that. I really do. A couple of new members, including, man, things are happening very quickly. Crowbar, an Awesome Gaming, and Mike Nadelku have signed up as YouTube members. Scott Taylor Davis says, I wonder how much will be prepared speech and how much will be Trump rambling. I think he's probably been told to stick to the script, but you never know when he'll do some of those kind of like inline interjections. Let's see. Irving De La Riva, $2 super chat. Brian Chambers is a new member. Armand Tessier says, what is the square root of 9? I believe it's 3, right? 3 times 3 is 9. David Gonzalez, big fan. Can't wait to hear your commentary. Thank you. TYML, thank you for the hard work you and your team are doing. Retro Ambassador says, you're doing great work. As a current member, can I use the coupon code to renew for another year? You can, but you're sort of foregoing whatever balance you've already paid for. So on your membership. So you should only do it if depending on when your membership renews. All right, it looks like I'm hearing something. It looks like maybe things are supposed to be starting. It is 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Not seeing anything. The stream is still live. Maybe Trump is, depending on who you believe, having a last little upper before getting going. Presidential address. Let's see if we can hear Lester Holt.
The nation on the continuing impasse over funding for his long-promised border wall.
So we'll just keep this low for now. I don't want to lose audio. We will open the phone lines after the event if we get a bunch of new people signing up at davidpakman.com/membership. 2 coupon codes available. Coupon code 2019 drops a $60 membership to $20.19. Coupon code This Is 2020 saves you 40% off of the membership of your choice. Kenneth Guthrie is a new member. John Perry is a new member. Demetrios Apostle, I believe it is a new member. And Ryan Fuller, I think I already mentioned. So keep those coming. It's looking good for taking calls. Let's see what Lester Holt is talking about here.
Funding the wall without legislation. That would certainly be challenged in court. Democratic leaders Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer will be responding to the president tonight. We will be carrying that live as well.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. So Pelosi and Schumer, we talked about this on today's bonus show, which you would know about if you were already a member or patron. Pelosi and Schumer will be reacting tonight. They have oh, wait, here we go. Let's see what's going on.
Tonight, I am speaking to you because there is a growing humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border. Every day, Customs and Border Patrol agents encounter thousands of illegal immigrants trying to enter our country. We are out of space to hold them, and we have no way to promptly return them back home to their country. America proudly welcomes millions of lawful immigrants who enrich our society and contribute to our nation. But all Americans are hurt by uncontrolled illegal migration. It strains public resources and drives down jobs and wages. Among those hardest hit are African Americans and Hispanic Americans. Our southern border is a pipeline for vast quantities of illegal drugs, including meth, heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl. Every week, 300 of our
Can barely keep up.
are killed by heroin alone, 90% of which floods across from our southern border. More Americans will die from drugs this year than were killed in the entire Vietnam War. In the last 2 years, ICE officers made 266,000 arrests of aliens with criminal records, including those charged or convicted of 100,000 assaults, 30,000 sex crimes.
This is going to be tougher than I thought.
4,000 violent killings. Over the years, thousands of Americans have been brutally killed by those who illegally entered our country, and thousands more lives will be lost if we don't act right now. This is a humanitarian crisis, a crisis of the heart and a crisis of the soul. Last month, 20,000 migrant children were illegally brought into the United States, a dramatic increase. These children are used as human pawns
This is
by
stunning.
vicious coyotes and ruthless gangs. 1 in 3 women are sexually assaulted on the dangerous trek up through Mexico. Women or children are the biggest victims, by far, of our broken system. This is the tragic reality of illegal immigration on our southern border. This is the cycle of human suffering that I am determined to end. My administration has presented Congress with a detailed proposal to secure the border and stop the criminal gangs, drug smugglers, and human traffickers. It's a tremendous problem.
I have 10 lies
Our
and 1
proposal
distortion
was
so far.
developed by law enforcement professionals and border agents at the Department of Homeland Security. These are the resources they have requested to properly perform their mission and keep America safe. In fact, safer than ever before. The proposal from Homeland Security includes cutting-edge technology for detecting drugs, weapons, illegal contraband, and many other things. We have requested more agents, immigration
This is not an
judges, and
emergency,
bench
folks.
space
This is simply
to
not an
process the
emergency.
sharp rise in unlawful migration fueled by our very strong economy. Our plan also contains an urgent request for humanitarian assistance and medical support. Furthermore, we have asked Congress to close border security loopholes so that illegal immigrant children can be safely and humanely returned back home. Finally, as part of an overall approach to border security, law enforcement professionals have requested $5.7 billion for a physical barrier. At the request of Democrats, it will be a steel barrier rather than a concrete wall. This barrier is absolutely critical to border security. It's also what our professionals at the border want and need. This is just common sense. The border wall would very quickly pay for itself. The cost of illegal drugs exceeds $500 billion a year, vastly more than the $5.7 billion we have requested from Congress. The wall will also be paid for indirectly by the great new trade deal we have made with Mexico. Senator Chuck Schumer, who you will be hearing from later tonight, has repeatedly supported a physical barrier in the past, along with many other Democrats. They changed their mind only after I was elected president. Democrats in Congress have refused to acknowledge the crisis. And they have refused to provide our brave border agents with the tools they desperately need to protect our families and our nation. The federal government remains shut down for one reason, and one reason only, because Democrats will not fund border security. My administration is doing everything in our
That's
power
maybe the biggest lie
to
yet.
help those impacted by the situation. But the only solution is for Democrats to pass a spending bill that defends our borders and reopens the government. This situation could be solved in a 45-minute meeting. I have invited congressional leadership to the White House tomorrow to get this done. Hopefully,
That was
we can
my
rise
lie
above
detector
partisan
breaking. I
politics
apologize.
in order to support national security. Some have suggested a barrier is immoral. Then why do wealthy politicians build walls, fences, and gates around their homes? They don't build walls because they hate the people on the outside, but because they love the people on the inside. The only thing that is immoral is the politicians to do nothing and continue to allow more innocent people to be so horribly victimized. America's heart broke the day after Christmas when a young police officer in California was savagely murdered in cold blood by an illegal alien who just came across the border. The life of an American hero was stolen by someone who had no right to be in our country. Day after day, precious lives are cut short by those who have violated our borders. In California,
A lot of
an
sniffing.
Air Force
A lot
veteran
of
was
sniffing.
raped, murdered, and beaten to death with a hammer by an illegal alien with a long criminal history. In Georgia, an illegal alien was recently charged with murder for killing, beheading, and dismembering his neighbor. In Maryland, MS-13 gang members who arrived in the United States as unaccompanied minors were arrested and charged last year after viciously stabbing and beating a 16-year-old girl. Over the last several years, I've met with dozens of families whose loved ones were stolen by illegal immigration. I've held the hands of the weeping mothers and embraced the grief-stricken fathers. So sad, so terrible. I will never forget the pain in their eyes, the tremble in their voices, and the sadness
Note that
gripping
the
their
lies have
souls.
stopped and now it's
How
just
much more
anecdotes
American blood
that don't justify any
must we
particular
shed
policy.
before Congress does its job? To those who refuse to compromise in the name of border security, I would ask, imagine if it was your child, your husband, or your wife whose life was so cruelly shattered and totally broken. To every member of Congress, pass a bill that ends this crisis. To every citizen, call Congress and tell them to finally, after all of these decades, secure our border. This is a choice between right and wrong, justice and injustice. This is about whether we fulfill our sacred duty to the American citizens we serve.
Not really, no.
When I took the oath of office, I swore to protect our country. And that is what I will always do. So help me God.
Oh, give
Thank
me a
you
break.
and good night.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so a little longer than 8 minutes, but roughly as promised. Where to start? My lie detector actually broke, and I had to bring in a hand cranked one because that was just endlessly stunning. So there were kind of two parts of the speech. I don't know if you noticed, and but I will open up the phone lines in a bit as new members continue to come in using the coupon codes. Thanks for joining us, by the way. This is live coverage and live fact checking of what Donald Trump is claiming is an immigration crisis, justifying the building of a physical border wall. There were sort of two parts to this. There was the first part, which was just lies. Then there was part two, which was sort of appealing to emotion and a bunch of other logical fallacies and referring to some tragic crimes that have been committed, but which still don't justify the particular policy that Trump is talking about. It's just fear mongering. So, number one, after watching this, it never should have happened. This was a purely political lobbying speech. This is not what the commandeering of national television for presidential announcements is supposed to be used for. Number one, Donald Trump opened by saying there is a crisis. Saying there's a crisis doesn't make it so. Trump said that he said that we have no way. I can't even find it. I mean, there's just so many lies. He said that we have no way to quickly return people to where they came from. That's not true. Sort of subjective. You can decide what it means for something to be quick, but we do have something called due process in this country. The only way to speed it up is, one, reopen the government so that the immigration hearings can continue. They're shut down because the government's shut down, or to eliminate due process, which we are not going to do. Mostly, we are not being hurt by undocumented immigrants. Donald Trump had some anecdotes of undocumented immigrants that committed violent crimes here. Of course, most violent crimes overwhelmingly and at a higher rate committed by American-born citizens. It is not really straining resources because there are resources that go to dealing with undocumented immigration. But remember, undocumented immigrants are single-handedly holding up multiple industries, including agriculture, where we get our food. You know, if you live in Massachusetts in the winter and you're having oranges and bok choy and whatever else, who do you think is working in agriculture to a greater degree than the percentage of the population that they represent? Restaurant industry, et cetera. They're paying into social programs from which they will never get money out because they are undocumented. So it's not straining resources. We have widely debunked this. We've done a big deep dive on this issue. He talks about how this is driving down wages, how undocumented immigrants coming to the U.S. is driving down wages. Corporations that hire undocumented immigrants want that, okay? And this is the big con. Donald Trump and people of his ilk, when it comes to this issue, have successfully bamboozled many people in the United States into being mad about low wages at people coming to the U.S. to work, right? The opposite of laziness, abandoning your country and sometimes your family, risking arrest or death to come and work to improve your family's life. It is the corporations who continue to hire them and are not punished by the choice of this and every administration. And yet people aren't mad at the corporations. They're mad at the immigrants who mostly are coming here to work. Absolutely disgusting. Americans are dying from drugs, but that doesn't lead to saying we need a border wall. Most of what's coming over is marijuana. People aren't dying from marijuana. There is heroin coming over. There is cocaine coming over. But of course, that problem is not going to go away if you put up a wall. Trump saying it's a humanitarian crisis doesn't make it one. Trump says that there are thousands of people being killed every year by undocumented immigrants. I've not seen that data. That seems to me like a drastic exaggeration. I simply don't have the numbers in front of me, but I have not seen that data. Trump pointing out that women and children are always the biggest victims. Women and children are almost always the biggest victims. That doesn't justify any particular policy, including the one that Donald Trump is advocating for. Donald Trump is asking for a lot of things in addition to the wall. All of those other things Democrats have said they're willing to give him in exchange for reopening government, but not the wall. So when Donald Trump talks about border security and technology and all of this other stuff, Democrats have been willing to provide that. It's Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump who have decided they're not going to consider it if it comes from Democrats. But that's a non sequitur. Democrats have already said they'll give him that stuff. We've just got to get government reopened. Saying that the wall is a critical piece of border security doesn't make it so. You've got to demonstrate that. It is untrue that everybody wanted a wall until Donald Trump was president and said that he wants to build a wall. There have been many people on the left and right who have said we would be open to, in exchange for a bunch of other stuff, funding some border fence miles on the southern border in key areas. That's different than saying, I am going to throw a tantrum unless you fund the entire wall starting with $5 billion. Those are two different things. Don't be tricked into thinking that those are the same thing. Donald Trump is saying that people are not even acknowledging the crisis, right? Because it's not a crisis. So that's a criticism without actually having any substance. Government is not shut down because of Democrats. Maybe the biggest lie of the night was Donald Trump saying government is shut down because of Democrats. It's not. I think most people watching know this. Donald Trump said in the Oval Office to Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi that he would proudly shut it down, and he did shut it down, period. Okay, so that's that. It's maybe the biggest lie. And then Donald Trump starts listing these individual crimes that have taken place committed by undocumented immigrants. Again, they're all tragic, but it doesn't justify 25 billion or 30 billion or 35 billion, whatever it's ultimately going to cost for a border wall. It also doesn't prove that the border wall would have prevented all of those crimes. And then he did something interesting, which is he said, imagine if it was your husband or wife or daughter who was killed. Mike Dukakis, when he ran for president, I believe it was, he was asked about his position on the death penalty. Governor Dukakis, what if it was your daughter who was raped? Wouldn't you, or your wife, wouldn't you then want the death penalty? And I don't remember what he said, but it wasn't the right answer. And whenever someone says that and tries to get an emotional reaction, the right answer is always, you can draw up a scenario where I would want revenge because I'm personally affected. That doesn't mean that we should make policy based on that. And that is, it's an appeal to emotion that works, which is, listen, you might not want the wall, but what if your sister was killed after being raped by an undocumented immigrant? Wouldn't you want it then? Well, I might, but the fact that I would be acting out of emotion and devastation wouldn't make it the right policy. It's literally a logical fallacy out of the list of logical fallacies. So amazing the number of lies and distortions and non sequiturs that were stuffed into this short speech. Truly amazing. And we will dig into it more tomorrow on the program for sure. I think I'm going to open the phone lines briefly. The number is 617-830-4750. We can hear what people are thinking about this. You are able to start calling in now if you would like. I want to thank a bunch of other new members, including Nick Leon. Let's see, it's just been a stream of new members. David Watts, Ryan Pipkin, Sarah Bonmayer, Jennifer Schlappy, John Harbour, and a bunch of other people that I named before. Thanks to everybody. Keep signing up at davidpakman.com/membership. Really, really appreciate it. Every single one of you that is supporting the work we do says you care about what we do. If you value what we're doing, please support it. Okay. If you're new to this program, if you've never seen us before, you don't know yet whether you value what we do or not, that's fine. If you don't have the money, if you can't afford to support us financially, that's fine. I'm doing this program for everybody, regardless of whether you can pay. But we are funded by viewers and listeners, mostly through something called membership, www.joinpakman.com. 2 coupon codes are available tonight. Coupon code number 1 is This is 2020. This is 2020. That'll save you 40% off of the membership of your choice. The other coupon code available is 2019, 2019. This is going away tomorrow. That'll drop a $60 membership to $20.19. You're all set for the year, and you can keep that price for as long as you want. So keep signing up, and I'll keep thanking members who sign up. Let's go to the phones now, 617-830-4750. I see a 774 area code, which is usually here in Massachusetts. Let's go there first. 774, what's going on?
Hi, David. I'm calling in from Boston, Massachusetts, your area.
Great.
My name is Jeremy.
Awesome. And Jeremy, we're not on speakerphone,
2020.
right? We're not on speaker or Bluetooth?
No, we're not. Am I too quiet or?
No, no, no. Go ahead. Just a little bit of an
Okay, so
echo
my
and
question,
background noise, but go
my
right
question,
ahead.
sorry, my question had to do with the 2020 Democratic primaries. To what extent do you think that Medicare for All is going to become sort of a litmus test for progressives and even for moderate Democrats? And do you see most of the field embracing it?
So here's how it will most likely go down. It will become a litmus test, but only in terms of a soft commitment. Okay, so the way that the Democrats that aren't really in favor of it, or maybe are in favor of it personally, but don't want to jeopardize their relationships with the for-profit insurance companies. And if you can turn down whatever's on in the background, or I can always let you go and answer
Sorry.
offline.
Okay, yeah, can you just let me go and answer? Sorry.
Yeah, it sounds like it's getting very, very crazy there. Here's what Democrats will do. They'll just say, I would love to think of Medicare for all or single payer as the end goal. I think it's a great thing to aspire to, but. So that's why in the short term, what I want to do is increase access, tweak Obamacare, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's the way that they'll pass the litmus test if it becomes one, without really endangering their relationship with for-profit insurance companies. Let's go to the 480 area code. I think 480 is that's Arizona, isn't it?
Hi, David. This is Miles. How's Mike? First of all, I want to say you did a really good analysis of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's 70% tax, something that I agree with, but unfortunately, not a lot of people in my family or friends agree with, which is unfortunate. But you did a very good job with that. And my question would be, I guess, sort of, well, do you believe that what Trump said just a few moments ago was basically a state of emergency? Like, that's what some people were saying.
No, no, no. So declaring, I mean, so okay, colloquially, yes, he was making it seem as though this is an emergency, right? That's the whole premise. But he didn't declare a state of emergency. That's a formal declaration that a president can make, and there was some suspicion that that's what he might be doing tonight. There's some suspicious that he would have, had it not been for the just devastating news related to the Trump-Russia investigation that broke a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
But he did not.
Wait,
He did
what
not
happened?
declare a state of emergency tonight.
What happened? You said Trump-Russia news happened a couple hours ago. What happened?
Yeah, so there have been, due to, this is just unbelievable. We'll have full coverage of this tomorrow. Because of Paul Manafort's lawyers
Oh, where?
just not knowing what on earth they're doing, and hey, I'm going to let you go. I don't know. Everybody seems to be having a party in the background. Paul Manafort's lawyers made it possible to look at some unredacted documents which point to testimony conceding by Paul Manafort that he was coordinating with Russia, specifically related to the Trump campaign as the campaign was going on, and as he was campaign chairman, which is the first a court document of its kind by someone saying, yes, I did it, right? It's no longer accusations from others. So we'll have full coverage of that tomorrow. Let's go next to our caller from the 864 area code. By the way, the number to call in is 617-830-4750. If you're wondering, that is the number. Caller from 864, go ahead.
Hi, this is Ryan Zimmerman from Greenville, South Carolina. First of all, thank you for the show. It's a fantastic show on YouTube. I listen to it every day. My question is concerning the current rise in right-wing and self-proclaimed classical liberal YouTubers out there. And I was wondering what your opinion is of them in the general sense, and also if you think they are a prominent figure in helping people go into the polls and voting for allegedly possibly like the wrong reasons and stuff.
The second part, I think the answer is no. I've not seen any evidence, at least, that the internet classical liberal movement is motivating people to vote that wouldn't otherwise, because listen, classical liberalism is sort of niche in the sense of being a kind of discrete and defined movement. So no, I don't really think that it's getting people to the polls who wouldn't otherwise go. I think it's a lot of people who are already politically engaged, although not all. I don't want to totally cast a wide net there. You know, my view, there's sort of two different questions in question one. One is, what do I think of the classical liberalism YouTube stuff? I think there's a lot of nonsense floating around, a lot of confusion, a lot of misstatements of what classical liberalism even really is. There's a lot of just saying I'm a classical liberal without actually being one. As far as, you know, it as a movement that is out there to become a promotional tool, I think it's been pretty successful. Anytime that you can kind of create a new movement but put a name on it, you often will do really well in getting people to say, I've now found my tribe or my group or my niche, so to speak. So there's a lot of people making good money with this classical liberalism meme, whether or not they even understand it.
All right, cool. Also, real quick, do you have any suggestions on like people from the other side of YouTube that you would like to be interested in or promoting on
Nope,
the YouTube?
I have
aside
no
from yourself,
interest
of course?
whatsoever in promoting any right-wing YouTubers tonight, but appreciate the opportunity.
No.
Thank you for the call. Okay, let's go next to our caller from the 952 area code. And who's this 952?
Hey, David, this is Jack from Minnesota.
Okay, give me 1 second, and then I'll get to your question. I do want to thank Paul Greenberg, Walter Stewart, Jessica Sanchez, Von Kuhlman, or Coolman, Luke Gwynn, Catalin Heyman, Shane Fair, and Garrett Morris for signing up for memberships on our website. Thanks to all of you. Okay, 952, let's get right into it.
Sure. So I had a policy-based question, I guess. So what is your ideal, I guess, what would a living wage system look like if you could have it your way? Would you rather have it tied to the state level or the county, or how would you want to see it implemented? And do you have any evidence that pointed you in that direction?
I've read studies that differ in terms of what. So, okay, the question is premised on the idea that some kind of federal living wage would be very difficult because cost of living varies so drastically from the
Right.
boonies of, I don't know what the cheapest state is. I know there's parts of Alaska that are just so cheap to live, to New York City and Los Angeles and Boston and DC. So federally, you're not going to be able to set one living wage number that makes sense. State level makes a
Sure.
little more sense, but even within states, you see drastic differences. Boston versus Peru, Massachusetts, which is actually a place, or Florida, Massachusetts, which are really, really cheap places to live. The problem
Yeah.
with continuing to go narrower and saying, let's do a county level, for example, is that it's very easy to work in one county and live in another. And the cost of
Yeah.
living can be very different from one county to the next. And you also need to determine, is it based on where you work or where you live? What about people who work from home? What about people who travel for work? Where do we assign them? So I've not yet taken a firm position on how we would index it, but I'm completely on board with you that it needs to be more nuanced than federal and probably even more nuanced than even state level.
Okay, and then I have a really quick follow-up question
Yeah.
too. So what evidence have you seen just in general that supports the idea that raising some level of the minimum wage is economically a good idea? Do you have any specific studies?
I mean, listen, there's countless studies that have looked in different areas at what the impacts would be. I don't have any of them prepared in front of me now to
Sure,
cite,
no, that's fine.
but I
Okay.
think that the general idea would be that obviously picking some cartoonishly high number to say this is the minimum wage wouldn't work, $200 an hour, whatever. But
Yeah.
that's typically a common straw man from the right. That's not what we would call an equilibrium wage in any way. I think that
Sure.
if you believe in demand side stimulus, you would understand that modest increases, either something backdating to the late 60s based on inflation, based on cost of living, that would provide significant demand side stimulus, but only would have a very small impact on prices.
Cool. Well, thanks, David. Thanks for answering the call. I appreciate it.
All right. Appreciate the thoughtful questions. Thank you. Okay. We're next going to our caller from the 703 area code, which, if I recall correctly, is Virginia. But before we do that, let me say thanks to J.A. Calton, who is a new member. I will thank Garrett Morris for the order of David Pakman Show coffee. Please order David Pakman Show coffee, or we might get rid of it. Okay, davidpakman.com/gear. And okay, that's it for now. So 703, what's going on?
Hi, I'm 15 years old. I'm from Virginia.
Oh, great.
I was wondering, should we prioritize reducing the debt or should we focus on promoting economic growth?
Why? So let me ask, why is it either or?
Because that's a topic for something I have to do for school.
Okay, here's how. So I'm not going to do your homework for you, but I would take issue with the premise of the question. The question implies that that economic growth and reducing the debt are opposed. I've not seen any evidence to suggest that. So I would take issue with the question, and I would fight the premise if I were you.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, no problem. Oh, man. Record the conversation explaining that to your teacher. Let's go to the 202 area code. Caller from 202, go ahead.
Hello, David. Am I live?
You're live right now.
Okay, great. I just have a question. If there was a Democrat in 2020, like, could they appeal the Trump voters who said, by saying, look, he's not done anything that he said he was going to do. I don't see how he could do anything more that he promised he was going to do, let alone the border wall. Do you think that they could appeal to Trump voters and change their minds? Or do you think those people, a Democrat is that's just not territory a Democrat can get into?
I think that it is territory that a Democrat could get into. The question that I would ask, and this is what I've been talking about for a long time on my show in terms of, you talk about convincing Trump voters. I don't think it's the time efficient way to run a campaign. And the reason why is it's going to take you a lot more effort to change the mind of a Trumpist than it is to simply get out the vote from people who are already sympathetic to your politics. And I think that this applies at the get out the vote level for activists, but I also think it applies from the point of view of candidates. So am I saying that the Democratic nominee should ignore Trumpists and just write them off? Of course not. But we've seen that they are sort of impervious to fact, and therefore I wouldn't focus on trying to change the minds of existing Trump supporters. Only half the country votes. You can win just on turnout. And I would focus on getting people to vote by making them understand why not voting last time was such a mistake.
Got it. And another question. Do you think Trump, in order to declare emergency powers, do you think Trump could deliberately start like a crisis or something, like start a war with another country, God forbid, or something like that as an excuse to gain emergency powers and then build his wall? Would you put that past him?
I would not put it past him, although I don't know about straight up starting a war, but I think there are probably intermediate things that he could do. And, you could make the case that what he did tonight, that the address tonight was potentially part of a pretext to do exactly that. Thanks for the call. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
All right. The memberships keep rolling in. I want to say thanks to Everett Quinton and Margot Northam, Jason Anderson. Thank you all for signing up. I'll take a few more calls. Let's do something else just to mix it up. Let's do another challenge tonight since we've got so many people here. We have 1,585 patrons right now. If we get to 1,600 patrons, just 15 patrons, I've seen a bunch of requests for this in the chat. I will take a couple challenges on leechess.org from the audience and get crushed in a couple of chess games. People from the audience like crushing me in chess. I will allow it if we just get 15 patrons at patreon.com/David Pakman Show, even if they're just for $1 a month. But we should do it somewhat soon because it's a school night for me, so I've got to get to that. Okay, let's go to the 909 area code. Caller from 909. Who's this? What's going on?
What's up? This is Darius from Southern California. I have a question for you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's a couple ways. This is a good question. There's a couple ways in which that would happen. One is, and I know that a lot of the elites end up paying taxes when they file rather than getting refunds back because they don't overpay. But in February, the filing window is going to open for people's taxes. And if people can't get the refunds they're entitled to because of the shutdown, you will very quickly see the elites, as you call them, start telling Trump, you got to cut the shit. Also, with the TSA working without pay, at a certain point, that's going to put airports at risk of closing. That will shut down industry, and that will also very quickly get things moving. I know that the elite elites are flying private, not with TSA, but a lot of them are not. A lot of them are flying on commercial flights. And I think that those are two things that would pretty quickly get people to say, hey, this has got to end. Well, yeah, I mean, so they might, but it's ultimately up to making a deal with Democrats, right? So I think that just if a few blue dog Democrats are open to building the wall, I don't think that at this point that gives them the votes in the House to actually get the funding Trump wants. All right, no, appreciate you calling in. Let's go to the 978 area code. Caller from 978. Go ahead. What's going on? Yes, you are. You are live.
So I am 16. I am from the Lawrence area. I wanted to know that basically Trump has pretty much stressed during his speech about the border security and border patrol and such. And I wanted to know whether there is a realistic way to ensure security control without, I don't know, wasting billions and trillions of dollars on a wall.
Yep. So a couple things a lot of things that can be done. One is in terms of the physical border, you're going to do much better with some of the technology solutions that have been thrown out, including drones and cameras and a bunch of other stuff. That's the border wall specifically. But the best thing we could do is start punishing all the companies that employ undocumented immigrants. Because if undocumented immigrants who, remember, they're mostly coming here to work, they're not lazy, they're coming here to work. If they can't get hired, the impetus to come to the United States is going to be chopped down drastically. So that is one thing that would be a much better investment of our time and resources. And if we work with the countries that the undocumented immigrants are coming from, rather than the way we typically do, which is to worsen the circumstances in those countries, but to actually improve circumstances, you will also reduce the number of people that are trying to come to the United States, and you will better the world economy. So those would be my top three.
Okay. Another question. This is more personal, catered to you. Would you ever consider voting for someone or a political candidate who is identified as a Republican? I know you're mostly not a Republican, but
yes, of course. I mean, if I go to the polls and the person who has the politics that most align with me has an R next to their name, I would vote for them. I'm an independent. I'm not registered with any party, and I would vote for whoever shares my views most closely.
So as long as their policies are very much aligned with the problems that are realistic towards you, then you would vote for them. All
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate the call. Let me say thanks to a few new members. I will say thank you to Yip Plurian and Joseph Kixie. Thanks to both of you. Let's go to the 804 area code. Caller from 804. Go ahead. 804, you might have us muted. Yeah, there you are.
Okay, hello. So I wanted to ask you, to what extent do you think fear plays a role in reelecting a president? Because we've seen what that can do in terms of like Bush. He got reelected, I think, mostly out of fear. Do you think that could play a role in the 2020 election? Because
Absolutely.
It seems like Trump is stroking the fears of flame, the you know what I'm trying to say. It seems like he's fear mongering. He's trying to get people worked up. Do you think that would play a significant role?
I think it could. And this is why, whoever is ultimately the Democratic candidate, and corporate media are going to need to be responsible and not allow the fear mongering, not allow concocted non-actual crises to take over the narrative and scare people into that we can't change horses midstream type of stuff. I think that the one thing working against Trump on that narrative is he's not been touting the I've kept us safe stuff, partially because it would seem, I would hope that if he tries it, that people would say, yeah, what about all of the shootings? You've done nothing to actually deal with the gun violence issue, and people aren't actually safe, even if you can kind of get around the terrorist attack component. But yes, you're correctly identifying that Trump is using fear more and more. You're correctly identifying that it could play a big role in the 2020 election. And, whether it's literally an October surprise or something that just sort of happens in the summer lead up to the 2020 election, we've got to be prepared for it because it can have a very big impact.
Okay. And one more question.
Yeah.
Do you think that how Trump keeps repeating, and a lot of the Republicans keep repeating this lie that the Democrats are only voting against the wall, or they're holding the government hostage for this wall because Trump is the one proposing it, and that they were in favor of a wall before he got in office? How long do you think they'll be able to parrot that lie before people actually realize that it's just completely not true and there's nothing true about it?
Probably for a long time, because people don't really understand that just because a Democrat, when Obama was president, was open to giving Republicans a few miles of border fence in exchange for stuff they were proposing, that's not the same as saying they're in favor of a $25, $30, or $35 billion wall across the entire U.S.-Mexico border. They're two different things, but unfortunately, the right is really good at confusing people. So they'll probably be able to get away with that one for a very long time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
show.
Appreciate the call. Thank you. Okay, we've got time for a few more calls. Thanks to Jeff Caesar for signing up for a membership at www.joinpacman.com. Caller from the 510 area code. What's going on?
Hello?
That is you.
Hello?
That's you.
Oh, hey, David. I really liked your analysis.
Thank you.
And I also want to ask, how do you think this issue is going to pick up in the next couple of days, and what do you think people's reaction is going to be?
I have no clue what the reaction is going to be, because I'm so in this all the time that I see a bold-faced liar, period. That's it. But maybe it will end up being persuasive to people. There's a couple different ways it will go. One is it works and it gets Democrats to give the guy some funding. Two is literally nothing happens and he has to come up with something else, which might be declaring a state of emergency and commandeering the money for the wall, or some third option.
Yeah.
At this point, I really don't know. I think I've got to kind of sleep on it.
Yeah, and I also think it'll be interesting to see how everything falls out in the next couple of days.
Agreed. We will be covering it on the show. Thank you. Appreciate your phone call. Let's go next to the 262 area code. Caller from 262, go ahead.
Hello. Hi.
Hey.
So I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I just wanted to point out that it's very interesting that 2/3 of people coming in at illegal immigration, as you pointed out, come in overstaying visas, and with this shutdown, the TSA being adversely affected.
Right.
Ironically, people coming in could be reduced because of. I just find it very ironic.
Yes, I mean, so
actually
let's see. I mean,
doing that.
I understand your point. TSA does not, TSA is for people if you come in from another country on a plane, you're going through customs, not TSA. But you're still making a valid point, and even a better one, I think, would be that there are deportations that aren't happening because immigration courts are delayed because of the shutdown. So there's actually more people staying here who are undocumented because of the shutdown, which is obviously, I mean, everything's backwards at this point.
Right. It would be interesting if that was an actual plan that he had, but I highly doubt that.
I don't think he's capable of that type of multidimensional thinking. Appreciate the call. Thank you so much. Let's take a couple more. Let's go to the 501 area code. And I want to thank Brian Land, who is our newest David Pakman Show member. Go ahead, 501.
Hey, David. Thank you for having me on the show.
Pleasure.
Okay, so I'm 16 years old, and just in history class, we're going over the southern border. And I live in Arkansas, so it's very pro-conservative. And it just brought up a few questions that I've had because, all I can find is, stuff that the right wing is saying, what the left wing says.
Listen, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I am having the hardest time understanding what you're saying. I heard Arkansas and southern border, but I apologize. I'm not sure what you're saying.
Okay. So being in Arkansas, I hear a bunch of stuff about the border.
Yes. Okay. Got it.
I have a couple of questions about that.
Good. Okay.
So we had to watch a video from Mark Dice about the Democrat Chuck Schumer. He was talking about in 2013 when under the Obama administration they signed a $20 billion act to help build the fences. And so being a $20 billion deal, how is that different than Trump is only asking for $5 billion?
So we've already dealt with that twice on the stream, so I don't want to bore the audience with it again, but that I've dealt with that twice already, and that's a widely documented talking point, but we'll check it out. Okay. I appreciate the call. I don't want to do it a third time just because it's going to be on the stream 3 times if I do. Let's do the 910 area code. Caller from 910. Go ahead.
Ernie, hi there, David.
Hey.
All right. So, Ernie, what do you think the next president, when Trump ever does leave office, is going to have to deal with on the international stage, given that Trump has seemed to really damage pretty much the United States' credibility and relationships almost across the entire world?
Yep, the next president's going to have their work cut out for them. They will be fighting an uphill battle to reestablish the damaged relationships with our allies. Now, the one good thing is most of our allies want to be on good terms with us, and I think that they would understand. I don't think they would hold against a future president that Donald Trump was such a moron and alienated them. I think because of the sort of bully pulpit that the United States represents, because of being a country with the economic importance that we are, I think that even though Trump is going to do a ton of damage to our alliances, I think most of our allies with whom Trump is ruining relationships will pretty quickly come back around once Trump is gone. But then you've got the reputational aspect, and Donald Trump has made it so that the United States is not a serious participant in conversations about climate change anymore. You are seeing a whole bunch of other areas in which it just doesn't, you don't need Trump in the room. You don't need the American president in the room when it's Trump. So it'll be an uphill battle and it will take years, but I think it will be doable.
Okay, thanks.
Appreciate the call. Thank you. Okay. That's going to do it for me. Took a lot of calls. We got dozens and dozens of new members. This video will be archived. I appreciate everybody who joined me. I will stream again, and we will have detailed analysis and follow up about what we saw tonight on tomorrow's program. And thanks to Mike Pond, one last member who just signed up. Thank you.